Newly unsealed court documents in the federal sex trafficking case against Maxwell are revealing disturbing details about her alleged role as Jeffrey Epstein's madam. We'll break down those details for you in just a moment. But first, Julie Grant gives us the background on the case that people are watching all around the world.
It's an indictment more than 2 decades in the making.
Maxwell was among Epstein's closest associates and helped him exploit girls who were as young as 14 years old.
Ghislaine Maxwell, longtime girlfriend of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, is facing federal charges for her alleged role in the recruitment and sexual abuse of young girls.
Maxwell and Epstein had a method. Typically, they would befriend these young girls by asking them questions about their lives, pretending to be taking an interest in them. They would take them to the movies and treat them to shopping trips. Maxwell would encourage these young girls to accept offers from Epstein to pay for their travel and their education, making these young victims feel indebted to Jeffrey Epstein.
Investigators say Maxwell played an integral part of what has long been believed to be a sex trafficking operation that spanned decades and crossed continents.
After developing a rapport with the victims, Maxwell then tried to normalize sexual abuse with a minor victim through a process known as grooming. For example, Maxwell would discuss sexual topics with the victim and undress in front of the victim, or be present for sex acts involving the minor victims and Epstein. Maxwell's presence as an adult woman helped put the victims at ease.
The 18-page indictment claims that between 1994 and 1997, Maxwell knowingly facilitated Epstein's access to victims, knowing his preference for underage girls.
Maxwell and Epstein worked together to entice these minor victims to travel to Epstein's residences. His residence in New York City, on the Upper East Side, as well as Palm Beach, Florida, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. Some of the acts of abuse also took place in Maxwell's residence in London, England.
Investigators are also accusing Maxwell of perjury for allegedly lying during a 2016 civil deposition.
Maxwell lied because the truth, as alleged, was almost unspeakable. Maxwell enticed minor girls, got them to trust her, then delivered them into the trap that she and Epstein had set for them. She pretended to be a woman they could trust.
Maxwell's indictment comes almost a year after Epstein's own indictment on federal charges of sex trafficking minors in Florida and New York. Epstein was found dead in his jail cell a month later, the medical examiner ruling his death a suicide.
As an Epstein survivor, this day represents a new beginning. This is the beginning of justice, which we survivors have been seeking for decades.
That was Maria Farmer, who claims both she and her sister were abused by Epstein and Maxwell in the early 90s. While Maria's allegations were never prosecuted, investigators hope that Maxwell's prosecution will help to heal old wounds.
There never was, nor shall there be, an excuse for the criminal behavior you were subjected to. We know that your quest for justice has been met with great disappointment, and that reliving these events is traumatic. The example set by the women involved in this investigation has been a powerful one. They persevered against the rich and the connected, and they did so without a badge, a gun, or a subpoena, and they stood together.
The arrests in this case may not end with Ghislaine Maxwell.
The target is not just this woman. The target is the entire organization that allowed this kind of perpetual, systematic, and habitual abuse to exist out in the open for so long. I will not be surprised at all if there are additional arrests, additional people brought in, both unknown and possibly very famous. This is a black book filled with a lot of big names, and people are running scared.
That includes England's Prince Andrew, who investigators have been trying to talk to for months.
I'm not going to comment on anyone's status in this investigation, but I will say that we would welcome Prince Andrew coming in to talk with us. We would like to have the benefit of his statement.
I don't know what kind of brokering's going on back there. I do know that the British people are demanding answers, and the health and well-being of the monarchy in toto is right now under threat more than at any other time since World War II. This could be the kind of scandal that topples a kingdom.
Unbelievable. Maxwell's attorneys fought hard to keep records from a settled civil case sealed, but the judge ordered them to be made public. Here to tell us what's in this latest round is Court TV anchor Julie Grant. Julie, wow. I mean, we're always getting more and more information here. What's the latest?
Oh, Benny, there's a lot here. You're right. And this information, it's come out in dribbles because, as you know, as you just said, her attorneys have been fighting this as hard as they can. But the judge said, nope. This latest round came out about 500 documents, and it's some very stunning and upsetting details. And we've pulled out some of the ones we want you to take a look at. Let me show you this first one. This is from the deposition of a man named Ronaldo Rizzo. He was a house manager for Ghislaine's friend, Ava Dubin. And this is where he's recalling a 15-year-old girl in distress. And he's saying here, he's being asked, so when Ghislaine Maxwell would call you during the time that you were living with, oh, I'm sorry, you know what? I'm looking at the wrong, we'll do that one now. Okay, so the one you were just looking at up on your screen, that's from Virginia Giuffre's ex. His name is Tony Figueroa. And so Virginia Giuffre, she's how these documents came about, because she's the one who sued Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation. It was settled in 2016. Everything was sealed, but then now it's been opened up, largely because of the perjury charges that federal prosecutors in New York are alleging against Ghislaine. And here, Virginia Giuffre's ex is essentially saying that Ghislaine Maxwell would call him up, ask him to bring her girls that she could provide to Epstein. So pretty sick stuff there, according to him. That the question was that when Ghislaine would call you during that time, when you were living with Virginia, she would ask you what specifically. And his answer, just if I had found any other girls just to bring Jeffrey. Question, okay. And then he answers pretty much every time there was a conversation with any of them. It was either asking Virginia where she was at, or asking her to get girls, or asking me to get girls. Okay, so going more to what prosecutors are alleging here, they're alleging Ghislaine largely participated in the recruitment of these minor children to be abused by Jeffrey Epstein and her, according to prosecutors. And let me show you the other one that was very, very stunning. This one is Ronaldo Rizzo, house manager for Ghislaine, for Ghislaine's friend, as I said. And here he's saying, I was on the island, and there was Ghislaine, there was Sarah. Sarah's an associate of Ghislaine's, by the way. She said, they asked me for sex. I said no. Okay, now Ronaldo is talking to this 15-year-old girl, and she said, I was on the island, there was Ghislaine, there was Sarah, asked me for sex. I said no. The girl went on to say then, I don't know how I got from the island to here. And then this Ronaldo Rizzo asks her if she had a passport or a phone. She said, no, Ghislaine took my passport. So what's being alleged here is that she was being essentially, coerced, forced, threatened to have sex with Jeffrey Epstein, and that Ghislaine was stopping her from returning home, having taken her passport. That is the allegation, Vinny. Several more stunning ones, but those are just a few. And of course, Maxwell, as you know, she's denying knowing about any of this, saying that nothing was amiss on any of the property. And the only thing that was somewhat interesting from her in these documents was that she claimed to have been unhappy with Jeffrey Epstein, grew unhappy at some point, left her job, left the employment with him. And now here we are with these charges.
How about the latest motion now that they've made to get the case dismissed?
Right. Yeah, this is really something. So as this is going on, her lawyers are asking to dismiss it on two different grounds, Vinny. First of all, they're saying that the grand jury that indicted her wasn't representing a fair cross-section of the community. They were saying that Blacks and Hispanics were underrepresented on this grand jury, the grand jury coming from White Plains, New York, rather than Manhattan, where this case is originating. So that's their argument number one. Second argument they're making for dismissal is that they're going back to a plea deal that Jeffrey Epstein got. Go back to 2005, and he was accused with some state charges in Florida, and there were also some federal charges that were brewing, and ultimately the feds decided not to prosecute him. He was given a deal to plead to the state charges. That's how he became a registered sex offender. He served about 13 months. And Ghislaine's lawyers now are claiming that part of that agreement was that she would be shielded from any prosecution. Well, these federal prosecutors are saying that no, she was never named in that. As a matter of fact, these dates in her indictment are different than the dates that Jeffrey Epstein was being prosecuted for back then. And Vinny, if they don't get the outright dismissal, they're asking the court to sever those perjury charges from the other charges which pertain to the recruitment of the girls and the transportation of those girls for sexual abuse.
And finally, the big question, any indication that she may cooperate, and name some big names?
You know, Vinny, I've been calling that the $1 million question. I know you know it is too. And with this case, nothing would certainly surprise us. I always like to say the feds are 3 steps ahead of us, and this is a big, big investigation. But so far, we have not heard anything about her being offered any deal or agreeing to talk. She has said nothing thus far. But from what we've seen publicly by the U.S. Attorney's Office, it seems that they would be open to her cooperation. Let's take a look back at what the U.S. Attorney said at the press conference announcing Maxwell's indictment.
This sometimes happens where there are perjury charges and people can go on from there and become cooperators if that's what you're asking. So I'm not concerned about that. In the event that she were to become a cooperator, I think that we can deal with that.
You know, Vinny, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I thought she was going to sing like a canary that they arrested her in her house and she was hiding in her bathroom, had her cell phone wrapped up in tinfoil, but she said nothing thus far. And like we always say on this show, you're innocent until proven guilty. So she is innocent and being held without bail, though, too, might I add, even though she's tried a couple times to get out. The judge is saying no.
Locked up, but presumed innocent. Julie Grant, thanks so much.
Thank you, Vinny.